The festival lights glittered over Seoulville like 1,000 fallen stars, casting shimmering reflections across the dark water. Zara darted through the crowd, her breath coming in sharp bursts, the distant music thrumming through her chest. She'd been running late all evening, first her shift at the bookstore, then the train delay, and now this maze of bodies pressing in from all sides. She barely had time to orient herself before someone's hand closed around her elbow, gentle but insistent. "Wait." The voice was melodic, almost surreal in its perfection. Zara turned sharply, instinctively pulling her arm free. Her eyes traveled up to meet his face, and her stomach dropped. She knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. Minho. The Korean prince, not literally royalty, but close enough. Idol, model, actor. The kind of famous where grandmothers knew his name. His face had launched 1,000 advertisements, and his smile had broken just as many hearts. Tonight, he looked impossibly perfect in a tailored navy jacket, his dark hair falling just so across his forehead, his eyes, deep brown and intense, fixed entirely on her. "I'm sorry," Zara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I don't have time." She meant it. She had exactly 12 minutes to meet Lila at the Lantern Bridge, and she was already composing her apology text in her mind. But Minho didn't release her gaze. Instead, his lips curved into a smile that probably worked on everyone else, a perfect blend of charm and calculated vulnerability. "Just a minute," he said, stepping slightly closer. The crowd around them began to slow, to notice. "I want to get to know you." Zara felt the shift in the air immediately. Heads turned. Whispers started like wildfire catching dry grass. She saw a girl across the walkway freeze mid-step, her mouth falling open. Another was already reaching for her phone. "No," Zara said, more firmly this time. She scanned the crowd, mapping her escape route. "I really can't." Something flickered in Minho's expression, surprise, maybe, or curiosity. He wasn't used to the word no. That much was obvious. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice to something almost conspiratorial. "I don't care what anyone else thinks. I just want you to meet me. Please. 5 minutes. Just coffee." Heat rose to Zara's cheeks, but it wasn't the flush of attraction, it was the burn of irritation mixed with something closer to panic. She'd heard the stories. The articles. The social media threads dissecting his every interaction with women, the fan wars, the shipping hashtags. She didn't want to be another face in that collection, another girl whose name would trend for a day before being forgotten. "I'm flattered," Zara said, and she even managed a polite smile. "But I'm not interested in being part of someone else's highlight reel." She turned to leave, but his next words stopped her. "What's your name?" Zara looked back over her shoulder. The crowd had grown. She could see at least 5 phones pointed in their direction now, recording. The air felt thick with attention. "Does it matter?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply. And there was something in his tone, not arrogance, not even entitlement, just genuine interest that made her hesitate for half a second too long. That hesitation cost her. A flash went off. Then another. The murmurs grew louder. She heard fragments. "Is that Minho? Who is she? Oh my God, is he asking her out?" Zara's jaw tightened. She met his eyes one last time, those infuriatingly earnest eyes, and shook her head. "Goodbye," she said, and this time she didn't look back as she pushed through the crowd. Behind her, she could feel his gaze following her retreat. The whispers erupted into full conversations. She heard someone laugh in disbelief. Someone else said, "Did she just turn him down?" Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Then again. And again. By the time Zara reached the Lantern Bridge, her phone was exploding. Lila appeared through the crowd like a lighthouse in a storm, waving frantically. "Zara, what the hell just happened?" Lila grabbed her shoulders, eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something that looked uncomfortably like awe. "You're all over Twitter already. Like, everywhere." "What?" Zara pulled out her phone and felt her stomach drop. The notifications were pouring in so fast they were making her screen lag. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of them lighting up simultaneously. She opened Twitter with trembling fingers. The top trending hashtag in their region, #GirlWhoSaidNo. There were videos. At least a dozen from different angles. She watched herself in grainy phone footage, watched Minho lean in, watched herself shake her head and walk away. The tweets were multiplying by the second. Queen behavior crown. Who is she? I need to know everything. Minho looks devastated. OMG. This girl just rejected Minho. I'm screaming. Plot twist. She doesn't know who he is. She knows. Look at her face. She knows and she still said no. Iconic. Oh God, Zara breathed. Her hands felt numb. Lila, this is insane. You're being stared at like you're the celebrity now, Lila said, and sure enough, people on the bridge were glancing their way, whispering behind their hands. Some were smiling, impressed, maybe. Others looked almost offended on Minho's behalf. Zara's mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. She just wanted to say no and move on with her life. She didn't want to be a story, a hashtag, a moment that strangers dissected for entertainment. I need to go home, she said. Wait, Lila grabbed her arm. Are you okay? Like, really okay? Zara looked at her best friend and tried to find the words. Was she okay? She'd just turned down someone millions of people would kill to date. She'd stood her ground. She should feel proud, empowered. Instead, she felt exposed. Vulnerable. Like she'd accidentally stepped onto a stage she'd never auditioned for. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Ask me tomorrow. She didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flash of cameras, heard the whispers, felt the weight of all those eyes. She kept her phone on silent, but she could see the screen lighting up every few seconds with new notifications. By 2 a.m., Girl Who Said No had gone national. By 4 a.m., international. People were making video essays about her. Literally. The psychology of rejection, what Minho's failed approach teaches us about celebrity culture. Why this woman's refusal is actually feminist icon behavior. 5 reasons she said no. Number 3 will shock you. It was absurd. It was invasive. It was terrifying. And buried underneath all of that, in a place Zara didn't want to examine too closely, there was a small, shameful thrill. She'd done something that mattered to people. She'd made a choice that resonated. She hated that she felt that way. When dawn broke through her curtains, Zara dragged herself out of bed and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair a mess. She looked nothing like the poised, confident woman in those videos, the one who'd walked away from a prince without a second glance. Who even are you? She whispered to her reflection. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd been ignoring it, but this time it was Lila calling, not texting. Zara answered. Don't look at the news, Lila said immediately. What? Why? Just don't, okay? Promise me you'll eat breakfast first, maybe meditate or something. Lila. What's happening? A pause. Then, reluctantly, Minho gave an interview this morning. Early morning show. He talked about you. Zara's blood ran cold. He what? He didn't say anything bad. Actually, he was really respectful. But he basically told the entire nation that he's interested in you and that he's not giving up. Zara, it's everywhere. It's the top story on every entertainment site. They're calling it the romance of the year and nothing has even happened yet. Zara sat down heavily on the edge of her bathtub. Her mind was spinning, unable to find purchase on any single thought. This is insane, she said. This is actually insane. I don't even know him. I talked to him for 2 minutes. I know. Listen, do you want me to come over? We can figure this out together. No, Zara said quickly. Then, more softly, no, I need to think. I'll call you later, okay? She hung up before Lila could argue and sat in the silence of her bathroom, listening to the sound of her own breathing. This was spiraling out of control. She needed to regain some sense of agency, some control over her own narrative. But how do you control a story when millions of people have already decided what it means? She tried to go about her day normally. She really did. Zara went to her favorite cafe, the quiet one 3 blocks from her apartment where the barista knew her order and no one bothered her. Except today, when she walked in, Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Someone whispered, "That's her." The barista, Minho, who'd been making her vanilla lattes for 2 years, looked at her with wide eyes. "Zara? Oh my God, is it true? Did you really turn down Minho?" She wanted to cry. Or scream. Or both. "Can I just get my usual, please?" she said quietly. To his credit, Minho read her tone and nodded quickly. "Of course. On the house today. You don't have to. I insist." He smiled hesitantly. "For what it's worth, I think what you did was brave. My sister won't stop talking about it. She says you're her new role model." Zara's throat tightened. She managed a small smile. "Thanks." She took her coffee to the corner table, her table, and tried to disappear into her book. But she couldn't focus. The words swam on the page. She kept sensing people glancing at her, kept catching fragments of whispered conversations. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi Zara. This is Minho. I got your number from a mutual friend, sorry if that's creepy. I just wanted to apologize if I made you uncomfortable last night. That wasn't my intention. I'd still love to talk, if you're willing. No cameras, no pressure. Just coffee and conversation. What do you say?" Zara stared at the message for a full minute. Her coffee grew cold in her hands. How did who gave him her number? And more importantly, what was she supposed to do with this? She could ignore it. She should ignore it. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. Her fingers moved before her brain caught up. "How did you get my number?" 3 dots appeared immediately. He was typing. "A friend of a friend. I know it's invasive. I'm sorry. I'm not usually like this, I swear. There's just something about you that I can't stop thinking about." Another message. "You don't have to respond. I'll understand if you block me. But I hope you don't." Zara's heart was doing something complicated in her chest, a dance between irritation, flattery, and something she refused to name as curiosity. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, "I appreciate the apology. But I meant what I said last night. I'm not interested." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then immediately put her phone face down on the table. She would not wait for his response. She would not refresh. She would not. Her phone buzzed. "Can I ask why?" Zara closed her eyes. This was exactly the kind of conversation she didn't want to have. But something in her, some stubborn, honest part, made her pick up the phone and type. "Because I don't want to be another story for people to consume. Because I value my privacy and my autonomy. Because I don't know you, and you don't know me, and everything about this feels like performance instead of something real." She hit send and waited, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The response took longer this time. When it came, it was simpler than she expected. "That's fair. I understand. But for what it's worth, I'd like to know you. The real you, not the version the internet has created." Zara's chest tightened. There was something disarming about his directness, his apparent sincerity. But she'd read enough celebrity gossip to know that sincerity could be performed too. She didn't respond. But Minho didn't give up. Over the next 3 days, he appeared everywhere. Not aggressively, not invasively, at least, not in ways she could prove were intentional. But he was there. At the bookstore where she worked, browsing the philosophy section with what looked like genuine interest. At the charity fundraiser she'd volunteered at for months, suddenly announced as a surprise celebrity guest. At the park where she ran every morning, coincidentally jogging the same path. Each time, he kept his distance. He'd catch her eye, offer a small smile, a nod of acknowledgement. But he never approached. Never pushed. It was somehow more unsettling than if he'd been pushy. This felt calculated, a careful dance of presence without pressure. And social media lost its mind. Minho spotted at the same bookstore as #girl who said no, is this fate? The slow burn romance of the century is happening in real time. I'm literally tracking their locations. This is better than any K-drama. Someone give this man a medal for persistence. Or maybe respect her no. Just a thought. The discourse was divided, intense, and constant. Zara felt like she was living in a fishbowl, every movement analyzed and interpreted by thousands of strangers. On the fourth day, she broke. She was at the charity event, trying to focus on organizing donation boxes, when she felt him approach. This time, he didn't keep his distance. "Zara," Minho said quietly. She straightened, clutching a box of children's books against her chest like a shield. Up close, in the soft afternoon light, he looked different than he had at the festival. Less polished, more human. There were faint shadows under his eyes. His hair was slightly mussed. He looked, she realized with a start, nervous. "This has to stop," she said, keeping her voice low. "I know," he said immediately. "You're right. I've been too much. He ran a hand through his hair, glancing around at the other volunteers who were very obviously pretending not to watch them. "Can we talk? Somewhere private? So you can convince me to go out with you?" Zara asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "So you can make a better argument?" "No." He met her eyes, and she saw something genuine there, something that looked almost like pain. "So I can apologize properly. And so you can tell me to leave you alone in a way that actually makes me listen." Zara studied his face, searching for deception, for manipulation. But all she found was earnestness mixed with exhaustion. He looked like someone who'd been living in a fishbowl too. "10 minutes, she said finally. "There's a storage room in the back. It's not glamorous, but it's private." Relief flooded his expression. "Thank you." The storage room smelled like cardboard and old books. Zara set down her box and turned to face him, crossing her arms. The door clicked shut behind them, muffling the sounds of the charity event. In the sudden quiet, Zara became hyper-aware of how small the space was, how close they were standing. "Okay," she said. "Talk." Minho leaned against a shelf, maintaining distance between them. For a moment, he just looked at her, really looked, in a way that made her feel exposed and seen all at once. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Not for being interested in you, I can't apologize for that. But for everything else. For not respecting your boundaries. For making this into a spectacle. For getting your number without your permission. For showing up places I knew you'd be. All of it." Zara's arms tightened across her chest. "Do you understand why it's wrong? Or are you just sorry because it didn't work?" "I understand," he said quietly. "I understand that I've been treating this like a role I'm playing. The persistent romantic lead who wins the girl through determination and grand gestures. But you're not a character in my story, and I had no right to cast you as one." Something in Zara's chest loosened. "Then why did you?" she asked. "Why me? You could have anyone. Literally anyone. Why pursue someone who clearly doesn't want to be pursued?" Minho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more vulnerable than she'd heard it before. "Do you know what it's like to have everyone want you but no one actually see you? Everyone wants Minho the idol, the actor, the face on billboards. But nobody wants to know the person underneath. Nobody wants to meet the guy who reads too much philosophy and can't sleep without rain sounds and is terrified he's wasting his life on something meaningless." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "And then I saw you at the festival. And you looked at me like I was just a person. Not a celebrity, not a fantasy. Just a guy who was interrupting your evening. And when you said no, it wasn't because you were playing hard to get or testing me. You meant it. You saw me clearly enough to know you weren't interested. And that made you want me more," Zara said, but there was less accusation in her voice now. "Yes," Minho admitted. "But not for the reasons you think. I wanted to know who you were. The person who could see through all the noise and just be honest. Do you know how rare that is?" Zara felt her throat tighten. She wanted to stay angry, to hold on to her boundaries with both hands. But something in his words was pulling at a thread inside her, the part of her that understood loneliness, that knew what it meant to be seen but not known. "That doesn't make this okay," she said, but her voice was gentler now. "You can't chase someone just because they're honest with you. That's not how this works." "I know." Minho pushed off from the shelf and took a step closer, not threatening, just present. "So I'm asking now, properly. Can we start over? Not as whatever the internet thinks we are. Just as two people getting to know each other. No expectations, no pressure. Just coffee. Or tea. Or a walk in a park where neither of us jogs. Despite everything, Zara felt a smile tugging at her lips. That's very specific. I'm trying to be clear, he said, and there was a hint of humor in his eyes now. I've been told I need to work on that. Zara looked at him, really looked at him. She saw exhaustion around his eyes, vulnerability in the set of his shoulders, hope and anxiety warring in his expression. She saw someone who'd been performing for so long he'd forgotten how to stop. And she recognized it because she'd been performing too, the woman who didn't care about celebrity, who was above it all, who could reject a prince without a second thought. But the truth was messier than that. The truth was that she'd been scared. Scared of losing herself, scared of becoming a story instead of a person, scared of being vulnerable with someone who lived in the spotlight. One coffee, she heard herself say. Somewhere quiet. And if at any point I want to leave, you let me go. No questions asked. Minho's face transformed, genuine joy spreading across his features in a way that made him look younger, less guarded. Yes. Absolutely. When? Thursday afternoon. There's a cafe near the university, Moonlight Books. It's quiet, and the owner doesn't care about celebrities. I'll find it, Minho promised. Then, more hesitantly, thank you, Zara, for giving me a chance. I won't waste it. She nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of what she'd just agreed to. As they left the storage room separately, maintaining the pretense that this conversation had been just another volunteer coordination, Zara felt her phone buzzing in her pocket. She already knew what it would be. More notifications, more speculation, more strangers with opinions about her life. But for the first time since this whole thing started, she felt like she'd made a choice that was truly hers. Now she just had to survive until Thursday. The next 3 days were torture. Not because of Minho, he kept his word and kept his distance, though the internet was ablaze with theories about why he'd suddenly stopped his public pursuit. Did she threaten legal action? Maybe he realized she's not worth it. Plot twist, they're secretly dating already. No, the torture came from her own mind. Zara found herself thinking about him at odd moments. While shelving books at work, she'd remember something he'd said and wonder what he'd meant. While running her morning route, she'd catch herself looking for him even though she knew he wouldn't be there. At night, lying in bed, she'd pull up his Instagram and scroll through photos, trying to reconcile the polished celebrity with the vulnerable person she'd talked to in the storage room. She hated it. She hated that she was interested, that her carefully constructed boundaries were developing cracks. You're thinking about him, Lila said on Wednesday night, calling it like she always did. They were at Lila's apartment, ostensibly watching a movie, but Zara had been staring at her phone for the past 10 minutes without realizing it. I'm not, Zara protested automatically. You've checked your messages 5 times in the last hour, and you keep smiling at nothing. Lila paused the movie and turned to face her friend. Zara, it's okay to be interested in him. It doesn't make you weak or hypocritical or whatever you're worried about. I'm not worried, Zara lied. You're terrified, Lila corrected gently. Because if you let yourself like him, it means all those boundaries you've been holding might shift. And that's scary. But maybe. She reached over and squeezed Zara's hand. Maybe that's okay too. Maybe boundaries can shift when someone earns it. Zara's eyes burned suddenly with unshed tears. What if I become just another story, she whispered. What if I lose myself in all the noise? Then I'll remind you who you are, Lila said fiercely. That's what I'm here for. But Zara, you can't live your whole life afraid of being seen. Sometimes being vulnerable is the bravest thing you can do. That night, Zara dreamed of festival lights and warm brown eyes and the feeling of standing at the edge of something vast and unknowable. Thursday afternoon arrived with deceptive calm. Zara changed her outfit 3 times before forcing herself to stop. It's just coffee, she reminded herself. Just a conversation. Nothing more. But her hands shook as she applied her lipstick. Moonlight Books was exactly as she described, quiet, cozy, tucked away on a side street where tourists rarely ventured. The owner, Mrs. Kim, was a tiny woman in her 70s who didn't own a smartphone and didn't care about pop culture. It was perfect. Minho was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He'd dressed down, jeans, a simple black sweater, a baseball cap pulled low. But even like this, he was striking. Beautiful in a way that seemed almost unfair. He stood when he saw her, that nervous energy back in his movements. "You came," he said, and there was so much relief in his voice that Zara felt her last defenses crack just a little. "I said I would," she replied, sliding into the seat across from him. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Minho smiled, small and genuine, and pushed one of the coffee cups toward her. "Vanilla latte. The barista at your usual place told me it was your favorite." Zara raised an eyebrow. "You asked Minute Jun about me?" "I did." He had the grace to look sheepish. "Is that creepy?" "That might be creepy. It's borderline," Zara admitted, but she was fighting a smile. "But I appreciate that you're asking now instead of assuming." "I'm trying," Minho said. "I'm really trying to do this right." And for the next 2 hours, they talked. Not about celebrity or social media or the circus surrounding them. They talked about books. He was reading Camus, she was rereading Austen. They talked about childhood dreams. He'd wanted to be an astronaut, she'd wanted to be a teacher. They talked about fears and hopes and the small, mundane details that make up a life. Minho told her about the exhaustion of being watched constantly, of having every word analyzed and weaponized. Zara told him about the loneliness of setting boundaries that others saw as walls. He made her laugh with stories about disastrous variety show recordings. She made him think with questions about authenticity and performance. And slowly, carefully, something shifted between them. Zara found herself leaning forward without realizing it, found herself invested in his stories, found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone. And when she looked at him, really looked, she didn't see the celebrity anymore. She saw someone struggling with the same questions she was. How do you stay real in a world that wants you to perform? How do you let people in without losing yourself? "I need to tell you something," Minho said suddenly, his expression growing serious. Zara's stomach clenched. "Okay. This," he gestured between them. "Whatever this is or might become, it's going to be complicated. The media attention won't stop just because we want it to. People are going to have opinions about us, about you. They're going to dig into your life, criticize your choices, speculate about every interaction we have. And I need you to know that before we go any further. I need you to choose this with your eyes open." Zara sat back in her chair, feeling the weight of his words. He was right. If she did this, if she let herself care about him, her life would never be fully private again. Every coffee date would be photographed. Every argument would be public. Every choice would be scrutinized by millions of strangers. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked quietly. "Because I care about you," Minho said simply. "And I won't let you walk into something without understanding the cost. You deserve that honesty." Something warm bloomed in Zara's chest, something that felt like trust beginning to take root. He was giving her an out. A clear, honest assessment of what dating him would mean. He was respecting her agency even at the risk of losing her. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course." Minho reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Zara let him take her hand. His palm was warm, his touch gentle. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across the table, the afternoon sun slanting through the windows and painting everything gold. And Zara thought about boundaries and vulnerability, about fear and courage, about the difference between losing yourself and finding something new. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too," Minho said. "But maybe that means it's real." That night, alone in her apartment, Zara sat with her phone in her hand and scrolled through the endless speculation about her life. Girl Who Said No was still trending, still evolving, still consuming strangers' attention. But for the first time, she didn't feel like a helpless character in someone else's story. She felt like someone making a choice, a real, complicated, scary choice that was entirely her own. Her phone buzzed. A message from Minho. "Thank you for today. Sleep well." Zara smiled, and typed back, Same time next week? His response was immediate. I'll be there. And as she set her phone aside and crawled into bed, Zara realized that saying yes to vulnerability didn't mean abandoning her boundaries. It meant choosing when and how to expand them. It meant trusting herself enough to take risks while staying rooted in who she was. The story of the girl who refused the prince wasn't over. But maybe it was evolving into something better, the story of two people choosing each other with clear eyes and open hearts, despite the cost. And that, Zara thought as sleep finally claimed her, was worth the fear.